Am I the a-hole for not having my wife apologize to my stepmom? I, 32M, have been married to my wife Vivian, 29F, for 6 years. We have 3 kids. I have several siblings, but this instance revolves around a half-brother, Trevor, 18, who lives out of state. Trevor came to visit over his spring break. My stepmom has never liked Trevor, mostly because she doesn't like his mother. About 3 days into Trevor's visit, my stepmom kept making snarky comments about him, his mom, his family, school, his tattoo, etc. Trevor got tired of this and grabbed his car keys and said he was leaving. This was around 11 p.m. My stepmom laughs and says he doesn't have enough gas to get home or money to get more. Trevor said that he didn't need enough gas or money to get home. He just needed enough gas to get to my house. My stepmom laughs again and says I'm not even home. I'm at work, which was true. I work nights, and that Vivian, my wife, would never let him stay here. Trevor says, I guess we'll see, because he knew Vivian wouldn't tell him no and leaves. My stepmother then calls my wife and tells her that Trevor is on his way to our house, and under no circumstances is Vivian to allow him to stay with us. Vivian says she's not going to turn him away, especially not in the middle of the night, and that everybody can all talk about it tomorrow. She'll let me know to call my dad when I get a chance to figure out what's going on. My stepmom begins to get angry and says that Trevor is not Vivian's child to allow to do whatever he wants, and Vivian needs to respect her as the mother of the family, and that she can make life in the family difficult for Vivian if she needs to, for Vivian to understand her place. And that Vivian has no right to let people into my name's home without my knowledge. There were other things said as well, and eventually Vivian loses her patience and ends the call by saying that my stepmom is just mad she can't be a F-bomb bully to Trevor anymore because he found a loophole. My stepmother calls me while I'm at work and tells me Vivian was rude to her. At this point, I have no idea that anything has happened. She then calls my dad. He works nights as well, and tells some version of events. My dad calls me and tells me that Vivian was disrespectful and had no right to speak to her that way and needs to apologize for her behavior. I get a call about 5 minutes later from Vivian. She tells me that Trevor is at our house, and they tell me everything that happened since Vivian wasn't at the house, and Trevor wasn't there yet for the call. I call my dad and tell him that it doesn't sound like Vivian did anything except stand up for herself, and my dad insists that Vivian needs to apologize. I tell him if anybody is owed an apology, it's Vivian. This was all 3 days ago. I'm getting texts from family members about Vivian needing to apologize and that Vivian doesn't have the right to get involved with family squabbles, and she shouldn't have let Trevor run away from the consequences of his actions. No one can tell me what the actions were. And if Vivian doesn't apologize, then she's not welcome around anymore. I don't think she owes an apology, but I had a bad relationship with my family for years when I was younger, and since it's improved drastically, I've been a lot happier having them in my life, and I don't want to lose that. But I also can't just allow someone in it to disrespect my wife so blatantly and expect an apology for it. But Vivian at this point is starting to feel bad, and she always stresses too much over absolutely anything she thinks she might have done to upset someone. So this really sent her on a series of mental gymnastics. And she says she doesn't want to be the reason I have a bad relationship with my family yet again. I've remained firm that she doesn't owe them anything, but AITA for not having her do it just to get it over with? AITA has no consensus bot. OOP was NTA. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, NTA. Your wife is a good person for supporting your brother whilst your stepmother is a manipulative and cruel woman and your dad is supporting her behavior. I think it's time to cut off both of them and let your brother know that you'll always have his back. OOP. He definitely knows we will. The last 3 visits he's made, he stayed with us to avoid her. He just didn't this time because it was also the kids' spring break and V had a lot of things planned for them to go do. Now she's just been taking him with them. Commenter 2. You are all adults. Your stepmother went on a bullying rampage, then full bats hit power tripping. She isn't your mother, nor your wife's mother, not even your brother's mother. So where the heck is she claiming the title? And even if she was, you are all adults. She can't make any of you do anything. She has no authority on who enters your and your wife's home, no more than where and what your adult brother chooses to be or do. No, she can't do as she wants. No, she doesn't get to decide what other adults do with their lives. No, she can't force others to follow her orders to bully. No, she doesn't get to do whatever the duck she wants, or conduct herself to such a horrific extent without consequences. What is really concerning is how fast she started to be menacing towards your wife. How sure she was to not get anyone opposing her, certain of being able to force others into her insane demands. Your wife has nothing to apologize for. She deserves some for the insanity she had to put up with. Your stepmother wants to cause pain and control over others. She reached a quite dangerous level of having lost touch with reality. She sounds actually seriously dangerous. OOP. She has a daughter of her own from a previous marriage, and she and my dad have my youngest brother together also. They've been married for a long time, so I'm assuming that's where she came up with that line. Commenter 3. NTA. The stepmom sounds like she's on a power trip. Can you tell your dad everything Vivian said/threatened? That her dislike of Trevor is also putting a wedge between you and your dad too? You were right to stand up for your wife and T. I'm sorry, everyone else isn't reasonable. OOP. I am planning to speak to my dad one last time about the situation tonight. I told him the conversation that happened, but I have no idea what my stepmother told him happened on the call. Commenter 4. NTA. Here's the thing. The moment you have her apologize is the moment that your family and you win. Because it gives your stepmom clear. Go ahead to abuse your wife and make sure she knows her place in your stepmom's view of family. You can be sad about losing the relationships, but if you step in the direction others are demanding, then at that moment, you are enabling your wife to be abused. You are enabling your adult stepbrother to be abused and having no safe place to escape to. Is having your family in your life really worth that? Knowing your wife from now on can't stand up for herself, for someone else being abused. She has to just sit there and take it so you can have the relationship you want with them. Are you okay seeing that and not saying anything? Do you really think your wife, sweet as she is, will be willing to accept that for the rest of her life? To accept any kids you have or might have been subjected to the same, or to see your family abuse their mother? Your family is willing to cut you both off because you both did not enable one person to abuse another. That should be the issue here. They don't want the drama stepmom causes, so it's just shut up and take it. If someone else gets abused, I feel for them, but I don't want it turned on me. Is this really how your mom, dad, and other family raised you? To ignore other things. To accept it because it's family, and instead of being held to a higher standard, they are allowing the abuse and encouraging it. OOP, you're right. Today was the first day where I was off work and was able to really sit and think about the whole situation without being bombarded with work and calls left and right. And the more I think about it, the more I've realized there's been a lot of other, but much smaller, things she said to my wife that didn't stick out really at the time, and that my wife never brought up again as having bothered her, but now that I'm replaying them in my head, they're bothering me. Trevor's actual mother has found out about it now as well, and called me to ask me to thank my wife for taking him in when he needed real family, as she put it. I do think that going no contact with them all, minus Trevor, is going to be the way this ends. Update in comments. Next day. Update. I tried to add it to the bottom of the post, but it wouldn't post. I'm assuming it made it too long. First of all, thank you for all the advice and kind words for / about Vivian. I spoke to my dad last night and I wish I could say it went well, but I think absolutely no one expected it to. He put me on speaker and my stepmother was in the room with him. I said that Vivian will not be apologizing, and she is an adult who can make her own decisions about having a guest in our home. I don't control her decision making. My stepmom cut in with, "You're controlling her now by deciding for her. She can't make things right." To which I responded, "You might be right about that, but in this instance it's a risk I'm willing to take. She doesn't have anything to apologize for." I said I'm not going to allow you to continue to cause her or myself unnecessary stress. I also told them they can't seriously expect an apology after the way they acted, and if they did, they were borderline insane. You can't bully and belittle someone repeatedly and expect them to be okay with it forever. And you cannot threaten an adult and expect it to just go over nicely. I told them that if they were so willing to act like children and cut Vivian, and by extension, me and our children, out of the family, then we would save them the hassle and do it ourselves. I told them we would be blocking their numbers, along with everyone else. They tried to argue more, but I simply hung up, which might have been immature, but I was just done. I blocked everyone's numbers. About an hour later, I got a Facebook message from my stepsister. I rarely use Facebook, so I forgot I had her as a friend there. My stepsister is the only sibling who isn't my dad's and is only my stepmom's. She and Vivian have always been really close. She hasn't been involved in this situation at all, so I took the chance and called her. She asked me if everything her mom had told her was true, and I said most likely not. But this is what happened, and explained it all to her. She then told me several instances where her mom had been similar to her and her fiancé. She said she had wanted to cut ties a long time ago, but didn't want to be the only one in the family who was on the outs, as she doesn't have a dad, so no other family to turn to. She asked if I had really blocked them and planned to keep it that way. I said yes, and so did Vivian and Trevor. She said she'd call me back and hung up. About 20 minutes later, I get a call from her again, saying she had called my stepmom / her mom and cut the cord with them as well, and had blocked their numbers too, as did her fiancé. So while I might have lost a decent amount of family members, I did actually get to keep the best two out of the bunch, plus obviously my wife and kids. Thanks to everyone for the advice. Comments. Commenter 1. Great resolution. The only rational way to deal with insane people. Commenter 2. Nta, your stepmother is unhinged. She has no business telling your wife what to do in her own home. What's with that BS that Vivian can't let people in the house without your permission? Why is your father not defending his son from your stepmother's rude comments?